So overall, the advertising industry, in my sense, can be divided into three buckets. One is search advertising, social media advertising, and the third is the retail advertising. Let's just look at numbers and how this is structured overall, right? So the overall global advertising market, digital advertising market, is close to $616 billion, out of which the US contributes close to $250 billion.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the fifth episode of Product Unfiltered. Joining us today, we have Kunal Chhabaria, Senior Product Manager at Walmart Connect. Today, Kunal will talk about his experience building products in advertising technology and various other industries. Kunal, can you please introduce yourself to our listeners?
Thank you for having me. Hello, everyone. I'm Kunal, Senior Product Manager at Walmart Connect. Walmart Connect is the advertising division of Walmart, and I focus on the yield and relevance part within Walmart Connect. I have a previous experience in product in India where I was working with Tata Digital as a part of my tenure as a Tata Administrative Service Manager. Was focusing on building India's super app and focused in the payment space in that direction. I have also worked in briefly in industries like steel trading, beverages, before my foray into product management as a part of my stints as a Tata Administrative Service Manager. I have a computer science background, did my MBA from FMS Delhi, and a second master's degree in product management from Carnegie Mellon. Happy to be here.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Kunal. As we're talking about the advertising technology in particular,
Mhm.
we were really interested to understand this industry in detail. So, can you please provide us an overview how the complete digital advertising world is structured? And if you could also help us include some major players in the advertising industry, including how they contribute to the overall ecosystem.
Right. So I'll first start by speaking about how the advertising industry is structured, and then we can look at what are the different types of advertisements that exist. So overall, the advertising industry, in my sense, can be divided into three buckets. One is search advertising, social media advertising, and the third is the retail advertising. Let's just look at numbers and how this is structured overall, right? So the overall global advertising market, digital advertising market, is close to $616 billion, out of which the US contributes close to $250 billion. Within search, the major player that exists is Google, accounts for about 30% of overall US's market. So essentially, $80 billion of advertising revenue is what Google generates. Next, I talked about social media, which is dominated by Meta, so the likes of Facebook and Instagram, which contributes to around 20% of the overall US market. So essentially, $50 billion of revenue is generated by Meta. The rest, what I call about major chunk, is through retail media, which contributes about $60 billion of the overall US market, within which Amazon is a major player. So out of the $60 billion, close to $30 billion is generated by Amazon. The rest is divided between players like Walmart, eBay, and multiple other smaller players. Now talking about where Walmart is, our overall revenue is close to $3 billion, uh, which is essentially 10% of what Amazon does.
Yeah.
So you see the gap there.
Yeah.
Secondly, in terms of the visits, uh, Amazon has close to 2 billion visits a month on its platform. We are averaging close to 400 million visits a month. So essentially, we are at 20% of what Amazon is.
Yeah.
But you see that the advertising revenue is still at 10%.
Yeah.
So even if we had to look at the users and the advertising revenue, there's a lot of gap to cover. And therefore, it is a very exciting time to be at Walmart Connect, because we grew year on year by 40% from last year. But still there is so much of gap to
Yeah.
cover, so much of new products to build in this segment. and therefore it is a very interesting time in terms of building and enhancing the products that we have here. But that's, I hope this gives you an understanding of how the advertising landscape and the major players are.
Uh,
This really helps us understand the whole advertising domain particularly. But for also our listeners, can you break down any particular product or feature you're working on at Walmart, or in general, which can help our listeners understand the advertising industry in detail?
Yep. So I missed out on talking about the different types of advertising that exist in the previous answer. Essentially, how do you look at it is that search ads exist. So when I say search ads, it's essentially ads that on e-commerce platforms that you see on different places, which you can click on that item. So all the sponsored tag that you see on top is
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
essentially all the search ads, or when you type a query, the ads that come there typically come within search ads. uh, Within second is video based ads and image based ads, which are more towards driving awareness. The search ads are more towards driving conversion. What
Mm-hmm.
my role is at Walmart Connect is to improve the relevance of these ads that are seen on these platforms.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, we are inundated by ads everywhere, right? As
Yeah.
users, mail ads, ads on Google, ads on e-commerce platforms. But it is very important that the ads that you see are relevant and which leads to conversion, because otherwise a user might um drop off from the platform, which is harmful for the platform as well as for the advertiser, for which
Experience.
conversion will not be driven. So my job is to see that is to work with data science and engineering teams to see
Mm-hmm.
that the ads that we are placing are relevant, which involves a
Okay.
lot of model building, which involves machine learning exercises done with the data science team. The
Mm-hmm.
other part of my job involves improving yield. So what I talk about yield, yield essentially means maximizing the ad revenue that you can generate out of the ad slots that you have.
Mm-hmm.
Keeping in mind the different constraints, like as I said, like relevance, conversions, things like that. How can you optimize your ad campaigns is considered in this. So one of the products that very recently I worked on enhancing is suggested bids, which essentially tells the advertiser on what bids they should place in order for them to be able to get their advertisement successfully placed on our platform, because we have
Mm-hmm.
limited ad slots, and these ads sort a lot of advertisers are competing for them.
Yeah.
So what will lead to maximizing their chance of winning the auction is
Mm-hmm.
what I worked on, wherein yield comes in. So those are my major roles within Walmart Connect, or specific areas that I'm focusing on.
Okay, thank you so much, Kunal, for giving us such a great insight of what your day-to-day job looks like at Walmart. Also, I would love to understand, did you had any advertising background prior to this, or this is the first time you entered the advertising domain? And how's your journey been so far?
So, no, I did not have any digital advertising experience per se before this. I had marketing experience, and that was more out of, my time at FMS, wherein I was working on a lot of corporate competitions, working on reading a lot of case studies, but no advertising experience per se. Had some branding experience, my partnership experience during my previous stint with Tata Digital,
Mm-hmm.
but the ad tech world per se in product management is completely new.
Okay.
Uh, that's awesome. In fact, I'm really interested, Kunal, to learn about your experience doing an MBA from a top college, from a top B school in India, and then transitioning to US and doing a second master's. So share us about your experience from FMS to CMU.
Right. So from FMS, I got into a very coveted general management program, the Tata Administrative Service. And that's when I thought that, yeah, this is where I want to be, and this is where my life is. That's when I got into product management per se while I was with Tata Digital. Uh, and built products from scratch, or like it was the app in the foundation of the app was what I had contributed to, uh, and learned a lot. After a
Mm-hmm.
point of time, realized that the learning curve had like matured, wherein and there was this hunger to do more or learn more. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Carnegie Mellon was a dream since my undergrad, because coming from a computer science background, you always want.
Yeah.
Given Carnegie Mellon is the best school in computer science, it was I was always a dream to do something at Carnegie Mellon. That led me to and deciding that US is the place wherein I can go into the next step of product management, learn more and contribute more. As you are well aware that education is one of the easier routes to come into
Mm-hmm.
the US. So that coupled with my passion to study at Carnegie Mellon was the reason that I applied to Carnegie Mellon. It was the only college that I applied to. Uh,
Wow.
and it was, if I get in here, I will. Otherwise, things are not that bad back there as well.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately got in, and yeah, got a chance to do product management in the United States as well. So that's been my overall journey.
Nice. So, Kunal, for our listeners who are in the phase of deciding whether to enter the product space or not, and might be figuring out if going to a B school or particularly choosing a program where product management is taught, what would be your advice to them? Should they look for a B school or jump for a product specific course?
Uh, I think if depends on what stage they are in, and uh, what is their experience in products so far. If they have worked in product man in say technology or in the engineering space before, then the question is different. I think how I would like to define it is that if you're very sure that product management is the area that you want to get into, then
Mm-hmm.
doing a product specific course directly would make a lot of sense. A lot of times, people aren't aware of it and are open to peripheral industries or domains also. That's when I say a MBA would be much useful. What the MBA did for me, more than what a product specific course did, was that it provided me with a good base of everything. So I
Mm-hmm.
understood finance, I understood marketing, I understood customer research, I understood what problem statements are in terms of the users in a much more holistic way than I did at a product specific course. So the business side of things, the MBA will teach you more. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
what a product management course will do is will help you tie in the business to the tech and the design.
Yeah.
So come to a product specific course more to get some understanding of business, uh, and a deeper understanding of tech and some
Mm-hmm.
understanding of design. But if you want to go deep into business, then do an MBA. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
with how the current scenario is, both will lead you to product specific jobs.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a question of how deep you want to get into a particular
True.
segment and then take it from there.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Kunal, for sharing all these wonderful insights. I'm sure doing an MBA or going for an MS to get into product management is something all of us usually go through that journey of deciding between these two things. But actually, shifting gears to the advertising technology space where we actually started off. So now we understand about the advertising technology space in particular. We are really interested to understand what are some challenges which you personally faced working as a product manager.
Right. I think the major challenge that is faced by an advertising technology product manager is to strike the fine balance between an advertiser and the end user. Right.
Mm-hmm.
It is the advertiser that pays us the money. They want conversions. It is the user that is inundated, and it is we have to see that the experience of the user doesn't go for a toss.
Mm-hmm.
And we as a company want to generate revenue out of it. So while you are building products, what is the trade-off that you drive between these is what you should tread carefully. So on
Mm-hmm.
the user side, there is relevance. that you should see. On our side, it's the ad revenue. And for the advertiser, you look at what is going to lead them to conversions, what is going to give them return on ad spends. So when I say return on ad spends, for every dollar that they spend, what is the money that they are gaining, or what are the items that they are able to drive for. Not
Mm-hmm.
just that, how effective are they in raising awareness of their products. So you go on to build products in that direction, and sometimes you have to take a call or decide on what exactly is this product solving, and there should be a general sense of awareness between all the stakeholders that this is what it is. The other problem, major problem, is that you don't want your organic items to suffer,
Yeah.
right? If you end up showing a lot of ads, a lot of irrelevant ads, what happens is, as a user, you might not like the experience and you might drop off. In our parlance, we call it search exit rate,
Mm-hmm.
which leads to a GMV loss for Walmart as a whole, which you do
Mm-hmm.
not want. And therefore, there are a lot of negotiations that go on with the search team or teams which are not necessarily a part of the advertising world, to see that our products are not essentially causing any disruption in the overall GMV or overall experience of Walmart's
Mm-hmm.
app or website. And these are major challenges to work on, negotiate, and see that all these stakeholders that I talked about are essentially well managed.
Yeah. And in fact, Kunal, while you talk about all the needs of stakeholders and managing so many stakeholders throughout the process, this industry, as you mentioned earlier, is competitive. We have players like Amazon, Google, Meta competing. So what is Walmart doing differently to mitigate these challenges and take a share out of this advertising industry?
Right. So this industry is very largely driven by consumer data and analysis. So the more users search for something or are activating on something, the more data you'll have, the more you're able to make the experience better. So
Mm-hmm.
to be very honest, Amazon and Google are much ahead of us at this moment because of the data that they
Yeah.
have. So essentially, what we are trying to do is trying to slice and dice and understand our customers better, and
Mm-hmm.
lead, and then effectively look at what products are there. Because in terms of even our products, we have still a lot of products to build which are not currently there with us, but exist with players like Google and
Yeah.
Amazon. So understanding that, and also it is in some ways looking at what mistakes did Amazon make,
Yeah.
specifically Amazon, the likes of Instacart, make that we shouldn't make,
Yeah.
in order for us to not, reinvent the wheel in some way. So
Mm-hmm.
something that does not cause us a GMV loss, causes us an incremental ad revenue, is what we look at. The other thing is that they are also reinventing as we speak, right? Or like adding up new features. So how are their current products performing? That gives us an idea on
Mm-hmm.
what our roadmap should be. And along with that, we have our own innovations also
True.
going. So to tie those two things together is where we are going, and what we are doing from an overall company perspective.
Learning from the market's mistakes and making yourself ahead of the time is what every company admires to. But as we see that all the big tech giants or giants in the market are building their whole ecosystem, and with Walmart Connect, in some or the other manner, what Walmart also trying to build a whole ecosystem of offerings around them. What all would be some of the key metrics which you keep in your mind while building products uh, for for consumers at the same time the advertisers, so that the both the stakeholders needs are met?
Right. So I'll first dive into the ecosystem part, and then
Sure.
we talk about the metrics. So Amazon has its own ecosystem, right? When you say it has Amazon Prime with
Hmm.
video, so which is again content driven, Amazon e-commerce. There's a lot of data coming in. With Walmart, we have Walmart Connect, we have Walmart Plus now. We are
Right.
also having our own partnerships with Spotify, with Paramount Plus, which will again give us a lot of data that in some ways can be used to make the user experience better. Overall, it completely depends on the product that you're working on, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are some products that are essentially, say, built to improve our, say, GMV or our ad revenue.
Mm-hmm.
It's specified it and not take a hit on, say, our search exit rate. So it
Mm-hmm.
depends on what product you're building. When I was working on suggested bids, the idea was to see that how are we able to generate maximum impressions or clicks for our advertisers. But in
Mm-hmm.
a general sense, I'll give you an overall idea of what metrics do exist. The ad revenue is very simple that we as Walmart look at. We look at what are the impressions generated on our ads, what are the clicks that generated, which is essentially giving us an idea of the click through rate of
Mm-hmm.
how much users are clicking on it. After clicking on it, we look at what is the conversion of what percentage of users you actually end up purchasing something.
Mm-hmm.
Along with that, as I had mentioned, search exit rate, which is essentially if the experience is not good enough, users leaving the platform. The add to cart rate, which is essentially what percentage of these ads are actually added to your cart. The
Mm-hmm.
fill rate. Fill rate is we as Walmart have X amount of ad slots that exist, different placements that exist. There are
Mm-hmm.
something called in-grid placements. There's something called buy box, which you see on the item page, which you click. There's just one ad
Yeah.
of that. There's something called carousels that are at the bottom, which say when you see items such as you can also purchase items related to.
Yeah.
So there's this carousel that exists. So within all these ad slots that we have, what is our fill rate on these pages is also what we track, and the
Mm-hmm.
products that we are building, how are they driving an increase in our fill rate.
Okay.
There are something called adoption metrics also that we look at. Adoption metrics is essentially these are all what I talked about on Walmart's website and
Yeah.
app, but we also have a platform for our advertisers where they
Mm-hmm.
like put in the bid amounts or look at what items do they want to advertise and things like that. So if a new feature is what we have launched, say worked on launching suggested bids, what is the adoption or what percentage of my advertisers are actually using the bids that
Mm-hmm.
I suggested them is what we can gain through that. So these are all the different metrics that we track. We also look at how are our positional data performing. So say ads that are on slot number 1 versus ads that are on slot number 4 or slot number 8 or 16. What is the um, engagement with these ads that exist at different slots?
Mm-hmm.
Overall, these are the umbrella metrics that exist.
Okay.
And depending on what product we are launching, we slice and dice to see what makes sense and what we should track.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. In fact, Kunal, while you were sharing all these different metrics and we were understanding the user needs in detail, something which really intrigued me was I have been using Google search advertising a lot. And I know Google offers us different goals. It could be to improve conversions, it could also be to improve impressions. And that totally depends upon the brand which is conversating with Google. So the goal of the brand can be to improve the brand value, or it could be to improve conversions.
Right.
For the retail industry in which Walmart currently is there any specific goal which your customers really want you to drive further with? Is it to improve their brand recognition, recall value, or is it getting more conversions?
So it is important to understand what in the marketing funnel where the brand exists and what do they want out of it. If it's a new brand, their essential need is to drive more awareness among that product because you as users are not aware of them. So in that case, they would want to do a lot of video advertising or image advertising where their brand, their banners are visible. It is
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily they are okay with spending more amount of dollars, even if that is not necessarily leading them to conversions. Whereas a
Mm-hmm.
brand that is like recognized, say like Coca-Cola, Red Bull, which is like within all of our minds, and we are all aware of it, they track conversion. So they
Yeah.
want to make the maximum of the dollar that they are spending on our platform. And therefore, they would focus more on ad placements that drive conversions more
Yeah.
for them. They would not be interested in images or video advertising.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that's the essentially the goal of these advertisers differ. And it's a very nuanced platform where these advertisers also have ad partners or that work for them and are very much aware of what the advertiser
Mm-hmm.
needs are. And the products that we have essentially cater to all these different advertisers depending on what their goal is.
Mm-hmm.
And they're very much aware of how much they can gain out of it, what they are
Yeah.
gaining, and there is a reporting mechanism that we have which gives them reports that, okay, this is the conversions that you were able to drive, so much were the impressions that you drove, this is when your campaign went out of budget, and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
so this is how the overall thing works.
Now that we have a good understanding of how the advertising space works, and as a product managers, what are key metrics which you need to take into account, can you also talk about few of the challenges which are there in the current space right now? And also, what does the future looks like to you as a product manager?
There's so much happening, right? Even with the likes of TikTok coming in, there's so much advertising that is getting dissipated, and so much of advertising revenue that's spreading. Us as users don't want to get something, or our digital experience should not be hampered. So it one thing, the major challenge is, when do you nudge the customer?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what do you nudge the customer with, and what is it leading to? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and all this boils down to understanding our customer better.
Okay.
And how do you understand the customer better? With as much data that you have about the customer,
Mm-hmm.
to a point where it's a nice balance to see that the customer shouldn't also feel that they know everything about me. There are times where we talk about something, and the next day we see some
Yeah.
ad on Google coming up or Instagram coming up. So it's also that it should not look that we are like peeking into their rooms, but we should
Mm-hmm.
have enough data to understand this. So the importance of data science at the moment cannot be understated. What models you're using, how are you being relevant to the customer, is
Mm-hmm.
is a major thing. And the other thing which also exists is our attention spans are reducing, right? So the contents that we are seeing have to be have to be so innovative and so detailed that it
Mm-hmm.
remains in our mind, or we are ending up purchasing that item at that very instant, which is
Mm-hmm.
a problem for advertisers to solve. And this is a feedback that we provide them, or like work upon, to see of how the content that they have
True.
can be made better.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, these are the uh, major things or major challenges that currently exist in the advertising tech world.
Thanks, Kunal, for sharing these wonderful insights. In fact, while you were going through all these insights and details, I was thinking that the product management industry and the advertising tech itself is such an evolving space. You see innovations happening every time, every now and then. So, how do you keep yourself updated with these technology trends happening in the ad tech industry and also in the product management domain?
Okay, so there is no right or wrong answer to this. It just differs on how a person looks at it. What I particularly do, and in terms of structured thinking or structured reading, is I read a lot of blogs, and these blogs are necessarily by these advertising partners that exist, because a lot of these advertisers work with these advertising partners. So there are advertising partners that exist like PackView, which give us detailed understanding because they are aware of how the overall ecosystem works. So I read a lot of blogs on them. So another blog, some of which I've also read, is like say the Ad Contrarian or Duct Tape Marketing, which give us an overall idea into how the advertising world is going on at this moment. The other thing is I read up a lot on blogs by Amazon, which
Mhm.
exist in because Amazon advertising, and it's something that I've really detailed into. I also have followed Instacart, Google blogs in terms of ads. Is the amount of data that exists within Google ad
Mhm.
recommendations or Google ads is second to none. So these are something
Yeah.
that I do. Magazines like Ad Age is what I read. Apart from this, I also focus on just like generic understanding or generic reading. So reading of magazines like The Economist, The Time. um I read The Observer, The Engineer. These are all some of the magazines which give us an overall generic idea into the technological innovations happening, and not just that, the overall world that we function in.
Thank you so much, Kunal, for sharing such great insights. This brings us to the end of today's podcast. Hope all of you have enjoyed today's episode and the discussion has helped learning something new. Stay tuned for more such exciting episodes. Thank you for tuning into Product Unfiltered.